So I just watched a video where Alpha Bro talked about how women with tattoos have mental illness and how men don't want them. So instead of wasting my energy on putting my fist through his face, I thought maybe use all of these feelings, this energy, to actually talk about tattoos in stories, because that's how we stay productive. Channel the fury. And yes, I do have tattoos, and yes, I'm working on having more of them. And yes, I do have mental illness, but it's not because of the tattoos. Okay, so now that I have my mic, hi. So, tattoos. Tattoos has a really long and interesting history in our world, and I do highly encourage you to look it up, because just in order to kind of counter what Alpha Bro was saying, I just took a cursory glance at it, and there's so much interesting stuff out there that you can find inspiration in. So highly encourage that. Now, Alpha Bro mentioned that drawing on your body, like tattoos and stuff, is a masculine trait, and it is something new that women do. And obviously he's wrong. Like, we all know he's wrong. Just other than just him being an alpha bro, here's the reason why he's wrong. In 2018, the Smithsonian Magazine published an article regarding the findings from a Oxford University British Museum combo research team that had looked at 2 Egyptian mummies that are currently on display. As far as in 2018, when the article was published, they were in the British Museum, which unsurprisingly most things is in a British museum. At first, these 2 mummies weren't thought to have tattoos, but it kind of looked like smudges on their skin. And then when they did like an infrared kind of look at them, they noticed that no, these are actually tattoos. So these 2 mummies have what is considered the oldest figural tattoos. And figural here means that they represent something real. One of these mummies was a woman, and she is now the earliest evidence that we have of tattooing on female remains. Apart from these 2, we generally consider Ötzi the Iceman to be the oldest evidence of tattooing, and the internet hasn't really caught up in that sense that if you search for oldest tattoo, you get Ötzi the Iceman, and these other 2 mummies aren't really even mentioned anywhere. But according to the Smithsonian Magazine, Ötzi the Iceman and these 2 Egyptian mummies lived roughly around the same time period, just in different parts of the world. So all that to say is, of course, that body art is not a new thing, nor it is a masculine thing, it's a human thing. In fact, when they found the tattoos on the male mummy, the research team was, and I quote, "taken aback by this discovery. Tattoos appear in the cultural record from Egypt's pre-dynastic era, but only on female figurines, which prompted archaeologists to surmise that only women were tattooed during this period," end quote. So even more no to the whole thing that this is just a man thing. We have 5,000 years of human history showcasing that both men and women and non-binary people and everyone else has been getting tattooed. Not a new thing. Tattoos are just another form of self-expression, and throughout human history, we have had the need to express ourselves. It's just one of those main driving forces of human development. We just have this desire to showcase to others who we are so that we might attract similar people and be able to build companionship with them in all its forms. Moving into the story aspect of this little rant, well, tattoos can be a great way to showcase culture, to showcase depth in your world. You can use tattoo culture or tattoo habits to showcase so much in your world, and that's what I want to talk about, how you can use it to further develop your world. Take societal views, for example. You can showcase so much through the simple act of including or excluding tattoos, or having a limitation on what type of tattoos people are allowed to have. Just take a look at recent Western history, how people with tattoos have been treated and rejected because they have them. How that has drastically changed alongside society becoming more accepting of non-normative lifestyles. You could just showcase so much about a character's history, a character's personality, where they're from, what culture they grew up in, through the use of body art. And I know that I'm talking a lot about tattoos, but body art in general, whether it's permanent or not, or body like modifications, you see this in our world throughout different cultures, how the modification of your body, whether it is tattoos or otherwise, has been a constant presence to showcase not only who we are, but also belonging and allegiances and so on. Using all of that, and also including how other people react to a character having tattoos, can give a lot of dynamic content to your world and interactions that your characters can have. All that to say, you can use all of these smaller details in order to give the reader a insight or a flash of the depth that your world has, but not needing an info dump and giving the explicits regarding it. You can also do one of my all-time favorite things, and that is to play with false narratives. It is so much fun, especially when you put it in the context of history and world building, because it does not make sense that if something happened 5,000 years ago, that your character in current times would know exactly what happened. No. Things get warped over time, things get erased, things get added, something gets embellished, whatever it may be, right? You can play with that in the creation of your world. For example, in my book Sword of Dalgor, in that world I have different ages, and the book takes place in the 5th age, but I have things that is related to ages prior to it, but I can also give you different pieces, like this character hears that character hears that. They're technically about the same event, but you cannot know what is real and what is not, because it happened so long ago. And you can have characters, like, just take role-playing people, okay? Just role-playing people is the prime target for this, okay? You are so gullible. Like, I love it. You just take whatever an NPC is saying at face value and just go with it. Like, no! What? They could be lying. They could be twisting words. Why are you so naive? Like, And you can do this with your readers as well. I get very excited about false narratives and playing with these kind of things, because if you look at our world, we know the saying, history is written by the winner. Or the survivor, technically. They are going to change aspects and details in order to make them look a little bit better, you know? Generally, people don't really portray themselves as committing genocides and stuff. They are the defenders, they are the good guys, all of that stuff. But in actuality, if you do write a flashback that is in the moment where they see reality, it should be pretty different from what your current time thinks about it. Because reality is never going to live up to a story. It's just not. So play with it, and the further away you get from current times or when something is written, the more blurry and confusing and contradicting information you should put in order to have more a realistic sense of time having passed. Just think about yourself. Do you remember exactly how a situation played out 15 years ago? Now imagine 1500 years ago. And for anyone who says, yes, I do, I'm sorry about the trauma. I feel ya. Woo. Another example that I really wanted to bring up, because this is a common misconception, but Think about Vikings. What do you think about when you think about Vikings? It's probably along the lines of a tall, muscular white man with probably a bit longer hair, maybe blonde, who has tattoos and just hot, you know? Maybe you also still add the helmet with horns. Maybe, maybe not. It's been talked about a lot. That's kind of the stereotypical view that we have of Vikings. When in reality, Vikings were a really diverse group of people that wasn't just the Nordic countries. You have, yes, the stereotypical Scandinavian ones, but you had Vikings in Russia and in Ukraine and down in the Slavic countries. They were very widespread. And on top of that, Vikings had a tendency to go places and see like, hey, that person is hot, and then bring them with them home. So that the genetic diversity of Vikings tended to be a lot wider than we have in our stereotypical portrayal of Vikings. But getting back to the body art thing is that we don't actually have any proof that Vikings tattooed themselves. There is a strong indication that Vikings did tattoo themselves, considering that we know that the practice existed before the Viking era in Northern Europe, but we don't have any physical proof. There is no surviving skin pieces? Objects? There's a word that I'm forgetting right now. But we don't have any surviving skin with tattoos on them that we can date to the Viking era. So we don't actually have any physical proof. When I did research on this, the only reference that people keep bringing up is a Muslim emissary who is talking about the Volga Vikings. They're the Russia-Ukraine area, and talking about how they were covered from their hands to their necks in blue or green imagery. But there is discussion regarding if the translation of the word tattoo is accurate, but they were covered in body art at the very least, whatever that version may be. And this is not like in-depth research, but it also just take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure that there are plenty of other entries somewhere in the world talking about whether or not Vikings had tattoos or body art, but in this case, all I could find was this one piece of writing being referenced, but we don't have physical proof. So it's really interesting that you can play around with this type of narrative that people imagine X people to be this way and looking this way and having these types of tattoos, when in actuality they have a vastly different culture or usage of tattoos. We also know of tribes in Africa who are using tattoos in order to showcase achievements, maybe getting married, becoming a man, kind of achievements and milestones in life. You can also use tattoos for that. Or you can do the same way that we have it today. It's just something that I like the motif of. And that's okay. It doesn't have to have a deeper meaning. It could just be what it is. But if you're doing it in order to create culture, it does have to have a meaning. Whether or not that meaning has changed over time, over 1,000 years of this practice being conducted, that doesn't really matter. But if it is a cultural aspect to a practice, then you need to have a reason for it, what it means. Basically, me going on this rant is me saying that you can use tattoos in multitude of ways, and it can be super interesting, and you can go really detailed or you can go big picture. It doesn't really matter, but you can use it in order to showcase a depth in your world, in your culture, in your character. So just have fun with it. I'm so excited about this. I really like tattoos. I really love hearing people talking about their stories behind them, why they chose to get them, if they mean something. I want to hear that. It's so interesting. So if you have tattoos, please let me know. I really want to hear your story about it. It's so fascinating to hear about these things. This was a very excited rant regarding tattoos. Thank you, Alpha Bro, for bringing that strike of inspiration, I suppose. But I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that you learned something. If you have any comments or maybe tips on your own, please leave them down below. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day, night, wherever you are in the time stream, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.